Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going deep on happiness.
Happiness.
Yeah, like what really makes for a fulfilling life.
Yeah.
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 And our guide for this deep dive is Dr. Robert Waldinger.
Okay.
He's the director of the Harvard Study of Adult Development.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of this.
It's that one that's been running for like 80 years, right?
Yeah, they've been tracking hundreds of people for like their entire lives.
It's crazy. I mean, can you imagine all the data they've collected?
It's got to be a gold mine. I mean, they're watching their careers, their relationships, their health, everything.
It's really amazing.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that one.
So we'll be pulling out the most interesting findings
Yeah.
and then like figuring out how it applies to us, you know?
Right. Like, what can we actually learn from this and use in our own lives?
Exactly.
I think one of the things that really struck me was how much this study challenges what we think we know about happiness.
Yeah.
You always hear it's about like money and fame, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this study suggests something totally different.
It really does make you think. For example, Dr. Waldinger talks about how so many young people want to make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
It's almost like an inherent desire, you know, like leaving a mark.
Makes sense.
And the study found that the people who hold on to that make a difference mindset, they're way more likely to be happy later in life.
Interesting. So it's not just a youthful phase. It's something that actually correlates with long-term happiness.
Right. And there's a connection here with psychologist Erik Erikson's theory of generativity versus stagnation.
Right.
It's basically the idea that you're either contributing to something bigger than yourself or you're just kind of going through the motions.
And this study seems to back that up, that idea of generativity being important.
Yeah, like raising a family or building something for your community.
Yeah, or even mentoring someone.
Right.
But finding that something bigger, that purpose, it's not always easy these days.
No, it's not. I mean, traditional institutions are changing. We're all over the place physically.
Right, like always moving around.
And we're so connected online. But are we really connecting?
Yeah, it makes you wonder, what does community even mean these days?
Right.
And how do we find that sense of belonging when everything's so different?
Well, Dr. Waldinger and Simon Sinek actually talked about this in the podcast.
Really?
Yeah. They were both trying to figure out how technology has changed how we connect with each other.
Yeah, because we're so used to interacting online that actually meeting in person can feel weird sometimes.
Yeah, like intimidating almost.
Intimidating is a good word for it.
Yeah.
But we all know deep down that real connection happens face to face.
Yeah.
You got to be present and vulnerable, and that's hard to do through a screen.
So Dr. Waldinger has some specific advice on how we can build those real connections.
Yeah, I'm listening.
He talks about creating what he calls salons.
Salons.
Yeah, but not like hair salons.
Okay, good.
He means bringing people together from different parts of your life. So like work friends, family, someone you met at a conference that you found interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah, and just seeing what happens when those worlds collide.
I like that. That cross-pollination of ideas.
It can be super powerful.
Yeah.
He even gave an example of how he ended up collaborating with a researcher studying schizophrenia
Wow.
just because they shared a student.
That's amazing. Think of all the things we miss out on if we don't step outside our usual circles.
It's true, and creating these little micro communities,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be complicated.
No.
Like even just asking a friend to go for a walk or grab coffee.
Yeah, totally.
Dr. Waldinger himself started making more of an effort to connect with his male friends one-on-one,
Oh, interesting.
outside of the usual couple things.
Right.
He said at first it felt a little awkward.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, are we really doing this?
Yeah.
Just us two guys?
Uh-huh.
But he said those one-on-one moments were way deeper than hanging out in a big group.
So it's about being proactive.
Yeah.
Like realizing those meaningful connections, they don't just happen magically.
Right.
Sometimes you got to put in the effort.
Exactly.
And it really makes you think, like maybe we've been overcomplicating things.
Yeah.
All this talk about self-care, but maybe it's really about other care.
Interesting. So Dr. Waldinger also talked about how important physical health is.
Oh, yeah.
And the study found that people who exercise, stay at a healthy weight, and avoid substances,
Right.
they tend to live longer, healthier lives.
Yeah, that's not really surprising though, is it?
No, not really. We all know we should take care of ourselves.
But I think what people miss is how much those healthy habits affect our overall well-being.
Right. It's not just about living longer.
Exactly. The study found that people who are physically active are less likely to have chronic pain. They have more energy. They feel better about themselves and their lives.
It's like a ripple effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you feel good physically, it affects everything else.
So all this biohacking stuff,
Yeah.
maybe it's not the whole picture.
I think Dr. Waldinger is saying those simple things like Move your body, eating well, sleeping enough. Those are the things that really make a difference.
And it's not about being perfect.
No.
It's about finding ways to move that you enjoy.
Right. And eating food that makes you feel good.
So it's really an act of self-love,
It is.
taking care of your physical health.
It all comes back to that interconnectedness.
Yeah, between our physical and mental and social well-being.
And speaking of interconnectedness, they talked a lot about passion in the podcast.
Oh yeah, passion. That's a big one these days.
Everyone's telling young people to find your passion.
But nobody tells you how to do it,
Right. And there's so much pressure to turn your passion into a career.
which can be really tough.
And sometimes I think we misunderstand what passion really is.
How so?
It's easy to get caught up in chasing external rewards like money or fame or becoming an influencer.
Right.
But Dr. Waldinger said we should pay attention to what actually energizes us,
So what gives you energy?
what makes you feel excited and engaged. He gave the example of his own career. He went into psychiatry, even though some people tried to discourage him.
Why?
It wasn't about the money or prestige for him.
Right.
It was about helping people.
That's a good example of how passion isn't always obvious.
Yeah, you might have to experiment a little to find it.
But even when you do find something you're passionate about, there's another challenge.
What's that?
Well, most of us have responsibilities that we can't just drop.
To follow our bliss.
Right. So how do you balance that?
That's a good question. Dr. Waldinger actually said he loves theater,
Really?
but he chose not to pursue it professionally
I see.
because it would have meant sacrificing other things in his life.
So it's a trade-off,
Exactly. He had to weigh the costs and benefits.
which is something we all have to do.
But sometimes passion comes from unexpected places.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Waldinger told a story about a contractor he talked to.
Oh.
The guy said something like, "I love my job. I get to build things with my hands and see them come to life."
You could hear the passion in his voice.
It wasn't about the hard work, it was about the outcome.
The satisfaction of creating something.
Which brings us to an interesting point about work these days.
A lot of us do knowledge work,
Right, we're staring at screens all day.
and it can be hard to see the concrete results of your work.
It can. You spend hours in meetings and writing reports.
And it's like, what was the point?
Dr. Waldinger mentioned this woman who manages super yacht projects.
Wow.
She puts so much energy into it, but does she ever see the people enjoying those yachts?
That's a good question. So how do we find fulfillment in those kinds of jobs?
Where the results are intangible.
Right.
I think Dr. Waldinger has some wisdom for us here.
Okay.
He reminds us that one of the best ways to find happiness is by giving our time to others.
That's interesting. He compares time to money,
Right. Money you can lose and gain back.
but time is gone forever.
So when we choose to spend our time on someone else,
Like helping a colleague or our kids with their homework.
or just listening to a friend who's having a hard time.
That's a real investment.
And it doesn't have to be some big, grand gesture.
Dr. Waldinger's Zen teacher said, attention is the most basic form of love.
Wow, that's powerful.
It really is, in this world of distractions.
Yeah, we're constantly bombarded with stuff.
Giving someone your undivided attention,
That's a real gift.
it costs nothing but your time.
And it can make such a difference.
So what are some ways you can give your time today?
Who needs your attention?
It's worth thinking about.
Because maybe that's where we find real happiness.
And finally, Dr. Waldinger talked about money and fame.
Okay,
And he's very clear that money matters,
right.
but only up to a point.
Like once you have your basic needs met,
Food, shelter, security.
more money doesn't necessarily mean more happiness.
Especially in a world where we're always comparing ourselves to others.
Yeah, you're always thinking, if I just had a little more, then I'd be happy.
But the research shows that's not true.
Happiness is not about your net worth.
And then there's fame.
Fame is tricky.
It could be a double-edged sword.
Definitely Dr. Waldinger has experienced that firsthand.
His work is so well known now.
Yeah, he's had to deal with a lot of public attention.
But he's also tried to use it for good.
Like his Zen teachers encouraged him to share his message with a wider audience.
It's a reminder that fame is a form of power.
And you can use it for good or bad.
So after all this research,
Decades of it.
Dr. Waldinger says it comes down to two simple things.
What are they?
Be engaged with people,
And engage in things you care about.
ideally with people you care about.
That's the sweet spot.
Shared passion, shared purpose, shared connection.
That's the secret to a happy life.
I mean, it really makes you think, right? Like after all that research, it comes down to just connecting with people and doing things you love.
It's so simple. but so powerful.
Yeah. And it makes me realize that happiness isn't something you have to chase.
It's more like something you cultivate.
Exactly. It's not about luck or circumstance.
Right.
It's about making choices
Day after day.
to build those relationships.
And do things that light you up.
So we want to leave you with a thought-provoking question,
Okay.
inspired by Dr. Waldinger. What's one small thing you can do today to give your time to someone else?
Like, what's one tiny act of generosity you can do?
It could be as simple as sending a text to a friend you haven't talked to in a while,
Just checking in.
or maybe offering to help a neighbor with something.
Or volunteering an hour of your time somewhere.
The possibilities are endless.
And you know what's amazing?
What's that?
Those small acts of kindness, they don't just help the other person.
They help you too,
Exactly. It's like a ripple effect.
spreading a little more joy and connection.
He doesn't let us off easy with those classic excuses like, I don't have time or I can't afford it. He brings up Ray Kroc, the guy who launched McDonald's. He was 54 at the time.
What?
Yeah, an age when, a lot of people think it's too late to start something big. But what's powerful about Kroc's story isn't just his age.
Right.
It's that he had the guts to chase this huge goal, even when, I don't know, people probably saw him as like past his prime.
Absolutely. Kroc's story is a great reminder
Yeah.
that age really is just a number.
Yeah.
And he wasn't over and out success either.
Right.
He had setbacks, of course.
Yeah.
But he kept going,
Yeah.
adapted to challenges. And there's a big lesson there for all of us. No matter what limitations we think we have,
Yeah.
we can always choose to push forward.
It makes you think, what limiting labels are you carrying? What could you accomplish if those labels just vanished? Okay, so we've talked about, seeing your potential. But what about that voice we all have? The one that whispers, you're not good enough.
Ugh, yes.
That voice.
That's where self-esteem comes in.
Yeah.
That deep down sense of worth that doesn't depend on achievements or what others think.
Mm-hmm.
It's about recognizing, your inherent value as a human being.
Mm.
Whately have this quote that just stuck with me. The internalization of value. It doesn't make any difference what you're doing. It's how you feel about your potential.
Mm.
How much do you think our self-esteem or lack of it shapes our choices, even how we interact with the world?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, think about it. When you genuinely believe in yourself, you're more likely to go after what you want, to take risks, to bounce back from setbacks. But if you're always putting yourself down, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. Okay, we've got positive self-awareness and self-esteem. That's a powerful combo, but how do we actually put it into action? It's so easy to get overwhelmed with all the things we should be doing.
And that's where self-control comes in. It's Whately's third ring.
Yeah.
It's all about taking ownership of your life.
Yeah.
Making choices instead of just reacting.
Right.
Whately uses this really powerful image. He calls it the Statue of Responsibility.
I love that. It immediately makes you think of the Statue of Liberty, right?
Right.
But then he flips it. He says true freedom comes from taking responsibility for everything.
Your actions, your decisions, the whole 9 yards.
It's a great way to think about it. Are we letting life just happen to us? Or are we actively shaping our destiny? It really makes you examine your level of control,
It does.
And Whately's great because he doesn't just leave us with these big, lofty ideas.
Mm-hmm.
He gives practical tips on how to really exercise self-control, prioritizing tasks, tackling the stuff we procrastinate on, even making a budget. Small steps, but
Huge impact over time.
huge impact over time.
Exactly.
Okay, get ready for this. Did you know we talk to ourselves at something like 400 to 600 words per minute?
Whoa, really?
It's crazy. Whately calls this inner voice our R2-D2, which I love.
Yeah, makes it relatable.
Because it's true, that little droid's always chattering. And it's up to us to make sure, it's programmed with positive, empowering messages.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's probably just running a loop of self-doubt and negativity.
Exactly. And that brings us to that fourth ring, positive self-image. Whately's point is the conversation you have with yourself, it shapes your reality. So what's your R2-D2 saying right now?
That's a good question for everyone listening.
Yeah.
Are you your own worst critic or your biggest cheerleader? Because, that inner dialogue, it can make or break you. It's like you're setting the thermostat for the kind of life you want to create.
And that leads us perfectly into that fifth and final wing, positive self-expectancy. It's like, that self-fulfilling prophecy thing.
You get what you expect.
You tend to get what you expect, whether it's, good or bad. But Whately, he takes it even further. He talks about the actual physical effects of our beliefs. He compares the negativity of, voodoo,
Oh, interesting.
which is rooted in fear, to the power of endorphins, which, we release when we're feeling hopeful.
It's like choosing between this downward spiral of negativity or this natural high of possibility. But, Whately's not talking about just some passive hope for the best kind of thing. It's about, really preparing yourself for success through effort and action.
It's like, those Olympic athletes who visualize themselves winning. They don't just hope for the gold, they train for it,
Mhm.
Your mind ain't e-body. Oh, this is one of my favorites, Whately says. Mind over muscle, mind over menu, mind over money.
I like it.
He's basically saying our beliefs, our expectations, they can actually impact, like, every part of our lives.
Yeah.
It's pretty powerful, right?
It really is. And it ties back to what we were saying about self-control.
Yeah.
It's not just willpower. It's about aligning your thoughts and beliefs with your actions, so you can achieve what you want.
As we've been breaking down these rings, something that's really struck me is how Whately emphasizes, not just personal success, but also the impact we have on others. He doesn't just want us to win for ourselves.
Right.
He wants us to, help others win, too. It's almost like our success is all connected.
Dole is not about, me versus them. It's realizing we can achieve so much more when we support each other, when we lift each other up.
Whately actually uses that, rising tide lifts all boats analogy. It's like when we cultivate these winning attitudes, it creates a ripple effect that inspires those around us.
Makes me think about people in my own life who, really embody these principles. And their energy is contagious. It makes you want to be better, not in a competitive way, but in a way that makes you want to, step up your own game.
And it's not about being perfect either. Whately talks about separating who we are from what we do. We're not defined by our mistakes or failures.
In fact, he sees failure as a crucial part of growth.
He even encourages us to, to leave failure where it belongs as a learning experience.
A stepping stone, not a stumbling block.
Exactly. And that's where self-compassion comes in. It's okay to mess up. It's how we learn. But we need to be kind to ourselves in the process. We need to acknowledge that setbacks are going to happen, but they don't have to, stop us completely.
And part of that self-compassion is surrounding ourselves with, with people who support our growth.
Mm-hmm.
Whately talks about the importance of associating with winners, not in a competitive way,
right,
but in a way that, inspires us to be our best.
It's about choosing your company wisely. Surround yourself with people who believe in you, encourage you, and steer clear of those energy vampires who, just drain you.
It's being intentional about who we let into our inner circle. Because those influences, whether positive or negative, they really have a profound impact on our mindset.
Yeah.
And our ability to reach our goals.
That's so true. And it's not just about, who we hang out with in person. It's the books we read, the podcasts we listen to, the social media accounts we follow. We have to be curating an environment that supports our growth internally and externally.
One thing that really resonated with me from Whately's speech was his emphasis on visualization.
Oh, yeah.
Picturing ourselves reaching our goals, not in a vague way, but with real vivid detail.
I love that. It's like creating this mental blueprint for success.
Yeah.
You're not just hoping it'll happen. You're experiencing it in your mind.
You're feeling it.
Feeling it, yeah.
And it's not just visualizing the end result.
Right.
It's visualizing those steps we need to take along the way.
Breaking those big scary goals into smaller, more manageable steps, right?
Exactly.
It's like making a roadmap for success.
It is. And remember how we were talking about those Olympic athletes? They visualize every step, with such focus. They're training their minds just as hard as their bodies.
That's so true. Which brings up the importance of setting, specific, measurable goals. It's not enough to say, I want to be successful.
Right.
We got to define what success actually looks like for us and then, make a plan.
Whately emphasizes that our minds are like biocomputers. They need specific instructions.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, I want to lose weight, we need to say how much, by when, and how we're going to do it.
It's like giving our brains a clear target.
Exactly.
And it's not about setting ourselves up for failure with, these crazy expectations. Whately talks about stair-step goals, aiming just a bit out of reach, but not impossible.
So we're challenging ourselves, but also setting ourselves up for those small wins along the way.
Yes. And those small wins keep us motivated. They build momentum.
And fuel that positive self-expectancy, that belief that we could achieve great things.
And it makes it easier to stay on track, to keep moving forward. This all comes back to that idea that if you think you can, you can. But it's not about ignoring the tough stuff or pretending everything's easy.
It's about cultivating that inner belief that we have the strength, the resilience, the resourcefulness to overcome obstacles and reach our goals.
And it's about realizing that success isn't a destination, it's a journey.
It's a process of growth and learning and evolution. And it's not a solo mission.
Right.
Waitley reminds us that we all need support, encouragement, guidance along the way.
This is why it's so important to, surround ourselves with positive people and to find mentors who can help us navigate those ups and downs and to celebrate those small victories.
It keeps us energized.
Yeah.
Reminds us that we are capable of great things. It's about focusing on our progress.
Yeah.
Not on our shortcomings.
I love that. Focusing on the progress, not the shortcomings.
And remembering that we are all works in progress.
Works in progress. I love that. Yeah, works in progress. And what's so exciting about Waitley's message is it's not just for like a select few, It's for everyone.
Totally.
It doesn't matter your background, the challenges you've faced.
Doesn't matter where you come from.
Exactly. He even talks about how people with low self-esteem, they often look for validation outside themselves, right?
Yeah, they try to fill the void with, stuff, possessions, status, even addictive behaviors.
Trying to fill that void from the outside in.
Whereas people with high self-esteem, they have that inner strength already.
Yeah.
They find joy in the journey itself, not just the destination,
And they don't let setbacks define them. They see challenges as opportunities to grow. It's a big shift in thinking, isn't it?
It is. It's like choosing to see that glass half full instead of half empty.
Yeah.
And that choice, it can impact everything, whether we approach life, with fear or with courage.
It's not about ignoring the bad stuff or pretending everything's perfect. It's about, choosing to focus on the positive, believing in our ability to create something better.
Absolutely. And one of the best ways to do that, like we've been talking about, is surrounding ourselves with those positive influences.
Right.
Whitley puts it perfectly. He says, misery loves company, but so does success.
I like that.
We really need to be mindful about who we spend time with, what we read, watch, listen to. All of it shapes our mindset.
Think about those Olympic athletes again. They train with other winners. They push each other to be better.
It's like having this team of cheerleaders who are always in your corner, supporting you, encouraging you, and, holding you accountable.
That's what I love about Waitley's message. It's not just about, individual success. It's about creating this whole culture of winning where everyone can thrive.
Where we celebrate each other's wins and help each other through the tough times. Because success, it's not a zero-sum game, right?
Yeah.
There's enough to go around.
There is. When we help each other up, we all rise together. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a challenge from Waitley. He asks, how can you use this knowledge to help others win?
It's a powerful question, one worth really thinking about. Because, the true measure of success isn't just what we achieve ourselves. It's about the impact we have on the world around us.
Absolutely. So go out there and be a force for good. Spread that message of possibility, of empowerment. Believe in yourself and believe in the power of others to achieve great things.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the winning mindset. Remember, you have the power to create the life you want. It all starts with believing you can.
And that's a wrap.